flipped a coin, okay? You and me. You and me. Coin flip is sacred.
Y'all ready for a show today, baby? Go time, baby. We've been waiting all week for this. This is where it happens right here, man. We man up, we stand up. We man up, we stand up. We all we got. We all we need. We all we got. We all we need. We all we got. We all we need.
Hit anything that moves. We're playmakers, man. We the best, nothing less.
You don't like this? Trust me, you don't like it.
We're between the white lines. This is football. Welcome to the big leagues. I won the toss. I took the football. Drive it down that throat.
Are you out of your mind? Are you out of your skull? Hey, every season is full of defining moments. Let's make this day a defining moment for us in our quest.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 19 of the CoinFlip. Season 2, NFL Week 1, and I couldn't be more excited. I think we're all ready for some football to kick off. We get a little dessert, little appetizer, I guess, tomorrow, and then the main course Sunday, and then 3 night games with Sunday night and Monday night football. So little nice dessert all the way around, mixed in with some great college football as well. As usual, each week, we're going to be focusing on all things NFL DFS. We will touch on a few betting contest spots that we like, but the majority of this pod will be focusing on NFL DFS. Before we get into that, let me introduce my partner in crime for season 2. We're going to be a 2-man show this year. Tambo at Toe Tagging Tambo on Twitter. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, buddy. You're talking all these appetizers, hashtag food over there. So I'm getting excited. But, speaking of appetizers, we had last week a preview pod. That was exciting. But now this is the real deal. This is the main course. Like you said, we got first game up tomorrow. Excited for some showdown stuff. I'm going to talk a little bit of that. And then, of course, we got the main slate. So week 1 is here, baby. Let's go.
You any thoughts on the Zeke signing? Obviously, it doesn't. We'll get into deep dive, but between that, Luck retiring, Gordon still holding out. Anything changed for you in the last 24 hours or anything exciting for you on the weekend other than what we're about to dive into for about an hour?
Well, yeah, the Zeke stuff is a little bit annoying to me, and I'll say why. Just because I think what was going to happen is Tony Pollard at $4,500 was going to be, 40% call it. Some people were aiming even higher in the Millie Maker, but around 40%. And I really wasn't too worried about it. Like the slate, as we're going to get into, and all the numbers and the plays, like I just didn't think I needed that. And normally there's some validity, obviously, in game theory behind the obvious. If in like something in cash where you put him as a blocker play, it might have been 60 to 80% there. But I was even planning on fading him in cash, which sounds like I'm a fish. But we'll get into the plays. There's too many running backs on this slate. There's so many running backs. There's so much value. Classic week 1 in the NFL. We'll see how it goes, but that was the big change for me. Now we got to deal with Zeke, and we're back to sort of like last year where we've got Barkley because the game should be more competitive. We've got Zeke, which we just talked about, and now CMC. You've got all those big backs, and again, we'll talk about builds, but that's how it changed for me. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think it almost, and we'll kind of get into your thoughts later, but I think it almost could eliminate both of them for me. Or play one you could almost play Zeke as a contrarian. I'm not sure how many people are going to pay up for him at that price. I agree with you that I think in general, week 1, there are plenty of spots to go to because how early the pricing comes out, which is, standard each year now. So there are guys that are way overpriced. There are guys that are way underpriced, Jacoby Brissett type, that there's tons of spots to make your moves at. If this was week 8 and he was, twisted his ankle last week and we were questionable. Now he's starting on Thursday or something. That has a bigger effect to the slate than what I think this week will happen because everybody's, been tossed these salaries and stats and rankings and over rankings and no rankings and, every which away for the last 3+ weeks as people have been craving to get click throughs. And for me, it really doesn't. That's why I don't get into a lot of the just deep dives so far in. Golf is still big for us, but B, it'll kind of be a theme for me tonight. I just think there's a lot of too much information when, striving and craving for it when really, look how many times people are going to change their rankings between now and Saturday. So I get it. And it's part of the business, part of the industry, but I like to give valuable information, so there's no reason for me to give rankings 2 weeks ago for the week 1 slate when it would have changed 20 times by now. So I'm excited to get into it. We are kind of doing a little bit new format this year, obviously 2-man. And on top of that, we're committing to an hour. That is our goal. There's 1,000 pods out there. So, one of the things that kind of, get you guys listening and not drag it on for an hour and a half or whatever is committing to under an hour. 55 minutes is actually our goal. So we're going to move fast. It's action packed. We have plenty of content out there that'll go way in depth. We have the live Saturday night audible. Sunday morning we'll be, hammering out in Slack. So this is to hit all the high notes that we've made. It's going to be a pretty consistent format throughout the year. Switch it up every once in a while for special occasions, but we're going to knock out, this year we have a brand new show sponsor for the entire season. Have you been wanting to try out, DFS football, but you're tired of competing against, 280,000, I think is the entries in the Million Maker this week. You have a chance now. A new app. It's called Super Draft. You can download the app now anywhere you get your app store. Deposit $10 with the code GUP and get $10 bonus dollars. That gives you $20 to start out with. You can deposit more, but all you have to do is deposit $10. Once you put that $20 in play, whatever you win from that point on is yours. So there's no rollover or triple rollover or whatever. You put $20 in play. If you win 100, you can pull all 120 out if you want. This week, to get their thing kind of started, they have a prize pool that is a $20 entry, so it's kind of perfect. Prize pool of $125,000, $25K to first. The best thing is there's only 7,300 entries in that entire pot. So use the code GUP. Go check that out. Great sponsor of ours this year. I'm going to get into that contest to try it out. Looks like, 25,000 up front for, you could put 10 or 20 entries in there and have a pretty good chance. Fanshare Sports, as always, check out their Pro Advantage. Use the code GUP, get 20% off. We'll have a little bit of ownership stuff this year, but they go deep diving. They have 10 times more resources on ownership. If you want in-depth stuff, you like that kind of stuff. Super exciting, their new platform, new content they got going out. We'll have more on that next week as we start utilizing their platform a little bit. And then obviously I'll probably do my standard ownership kind of, projections like I did for golf, pretty basic. These guys have the in-depth stuff. You can use 20% off now, get it before the season starts. As we mentioned a couple weeks ago, PFF, profootballfocus.com, I think everybody's familiar with. If you want to get the elite or edge advantage this year, DFS season long, they have tons of college draft, like real, the draft class coming up, previews, reviews, just tons of articles in there. Their grading system is amazing. It's really for the deep dive person. So think about Fantasy National. If you're a golf guy, Fantasy National is your deep dive spot. Go do what you want to do. This is what it is for in the football side. They have everything you could ever want. You can get 20% off now. Go to gupscorner.com/affiliates. The promo code is SAVE20. The link's already on there. It's on our site. As soon as you click it, you put in, you get 20% off either one of those. As always, as you've seen over the last few weeks, rate and review us on iTunes, Instagram, Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We give away a lot throughout the season. We will continue to do that. We gave away $500 last week. We will have some big giveaways up in the next few weeks. We'll have some new merchandise coming out that we'll be giving away. Most important of the night, you have less than 45 minutes to get into the Super7. I was going to say the Survivor contest, but it is already filled. So that is done. So you can get in the Super7. You got 45 minutes. It's 100% payouts. Basically, don't bitch if you miss, because you've had all kinds of warnings and warnings on top of warnings. So here's your last chance. Before this pod ends, it will close. We will not reopen. It's a hard deadline. We have to get things set up and going for week 1. The Listener League is up this week. The winner of the Listener League, it'll be in the podcast, the audio version here. It's up on the Twitter. We'll get $50 of merchandise credit as we're about to load up our store with our brand new branding gear. So excited for that. Tambo, week 1 NFL. I'll go into it here in a minute, but give me your biggest kind of preach mode, 20 seconds on bankroll management and not blowing your money on week 1.
Oh yeah, for me it's we talk about it all the time, so it's a little bit different. But if you're brand new to it, or if you're on top of it, you got to make sure that you're planning it out in advance. So I plan mine out at the start of the year. Everybody's number is different, but I sort of look at it as what my total is going to be each week. I factor in all the live final cues that I'm going to go after. We'll get into those, all the milli makers, whatever. Chop it down by week, and then I separate it from my PGA bankroll. That's another point I'd like to make, just so everybody knows that that's not the same to me. I'm separating both, seeing where I'm at, and then that's how I attack it. And then I start looking at the contest and make my selection from there.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much the same. It's we preached it last week. I highly recommend you go listen to the preview pod. Contest selection, which we're going to hit on just in a second, and then bankroll management. We go really in depth. Buck's kind of joined us there for his final pod. It was a great pod, a little long, but if you want just a kind of a preaching of how we are, where we come from, especially if you're new, we got a lot of new followers this year. That's a great pod to get started for the football season. If you are going to be chasing the big finals and all that stuff, bankroll it in now, manage it. There's so much out there. Just go look at all the slates and contests and everything you have. You're not going to have to be desperate to play. You can play every night. Now they got second half, fourth quarter, which it's almost overboard for me, but I know if they can get it, they're going to put it out there. DGen people. I don't have enough time to worry about all that. So I'm going to focus on the things that I know I can do well. And college football is huge for us as well. Last weekend, the Slack was lighting up with green screens. First week of college football, I think Bobby did a terrific job, and he's got a lot of people that thanked him for week one. It's only going to get better. Before we dive into the slates, quick, if you give me your three favorite contests on, we'll use DraftKings. Obviously, Super Draft is going to be one we're probably both going to be in a little bit, but most people are familiar with DraftKings. What's your three favorite? It can be GPP or whatever contest.
Yeah, it's all GPP for me. Again, this is a personal preference because this comes back to what your goals are. So my first two are insane tournaments, and it's not, favorites don't have to be, in my opinion, what are going to have the best success. But my favorites are the Millie Maker and the live final queue, because those to me are life-changing opportunities for me, for my family, if I win the money, and that's what I'm going after. So those are my favorite to play. They're not the smartest. And when I bankroll, like you talked about and we just mentioned, I bankroll it accordingly. I like the 153 max, the power. It's like the power sweep or something they call it. And that's where I sort of can, again, practice on my 3 max like I do with golf or anything else, where I'm looking to get better at it and game selection and that sort of thing. But it's like 3,000 people. And yes, there's better competition in it, but that's $450 where I can just take 3 shots and feel like I have a little bit of upside. And there's normally 50 or 100K up top. So it's still good money in a big tournament, just not going crazy.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say the $9 slant, so I kind of put that as a 3B because I know you like playing that. Actually, the 153 max is one of my favorites. So with you saying that, my 3 would be, I like that one. Obviously, I play it every week just about. I like the $100 single, especially on a lower bankroll. There's like 1,100 people. It's 20K up top. For the guy that just doesn't have any hardly time, they're going to have some of our content, listen to a couple pods, and build one lineup. It's a single max entry, so it's great because you're leverage with the field, which you talked about a lot last week. If you're a little lower on the bankroll, want to build some more lineups, I like the $33 5 max. So $165, 7,000 entries, 25K up top. And then one that I know you play, if not every week, most weeks, the $9 slant. It's 150 max, so it's over 1,000 to max it. But you can throw 20 to 40 lineups in there and be fairly competitive in a very balanced payout structure. So those, what Tambo said, what I said, I think all those are great ones.
To clarify quickly, the slant has the best structure, as you talked about. And the biggest thing about that is, again, and I just want to tell listeners because I think it's important, is that's part of my bankroll plan. So I actually love that tournament. But what I've decided to switch gears on, because that only has around 50,000 in it, the $5 FFWCQ only has 14,000. So I'm going to save $4 per entry, part of my bankroll management plan. So back to how far ahead I'm planning and how in-depth when you're playing this game full-time, essentially, that you do, that I'm doing. I decided instead of playing the $9 slant, I'd rather get my money into the 14,000 person tournament because I can still do quite a few lineups in that. And on top of it, if I get there, I'm already guaranteed 15 grand, which is less than the 50K up top. But then I like my chances in a field of 200 people with 2 million for first and 1 million for second. So that's how I've adjusted my bankroll, my plan around it. But it is an amazing tournament, the slant.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good strategy and a good point for you. If I gave you $150 only this week, what would you play?
Yeah, and this is for everybody because most people are playing with these bankrolls, and I do understand that we all started from less money. You know, I was putting on $25 a night when I first started and ended up losing almost $5,000. I've talked about it in the past. But you know, when you learn the way, the $150 I would play in. There's the Daily Fantasy Edge or the DFS Edge podcast, and then the Mayo podcast that both have the rake free. So I'd say both of those. I think it adds up to around $75. And then I'd use the other $75 in single entry double ups with the biggest possible fields. So if it's a 500-man, $5 single entry, like you really can easily get in the top 250 there, and you can work on building your roll so that maybe next week you can do 200, and maybe the next week 250, then maybe you hit one big, and you're still in tournaments that can pay solid 10 grand money and be able to really build your roll. So it's the smartest way to do it, in my opinion.
I agree. You said the Edge of Mayo; those were going to be automatics. If you don't know, go listen to the podcast. Both of them, they will tell you how to enter their contest. It's pretty easy. Once you do it once, you'll know where it's at every week. So those are great. Just no rake is hard to beat. Both good pods and good people. I did the especially if someone's trying to learn into multiple building, the $3 max I like. And this is more of if you're just craving to, like, say you want to play the Millie Maker, but you have $60, right? I think it's better to come down here, which is still a major contest as far as the number of entries. But put 20 entries in, you're leveraged with the entire field at $60, and you literally have a chance to win 200,000. It's still a needle in a haystack type of deal because of how many entries there are, but at least you're leveraged with the field and you're practicing building 20 max. So if I did all that, I had $15 left. So I do the $5 3 max. It's 150K pot in total. That's kind of how I rounded up that 150. As always, like I just said, listen to our season preview pod, and we have some educational pods up as well, going back to last year, and we're going to update those in the fall and winter, just like we did last year. And then finally, we're going to get straight into the content. Tambo, we have the Packers and the Bears tomorrow night. We made a decision to do our pods Wednesday night. We went back and forth Wednesday, Thursday. We're going to double up actually starting next week with a 30-minute emergency 9 to go over the fall swing golf tournament, and then take a little break. And then at 30 minutes later, we'll start the coin flip. And the reason why we're doing Wednesday nights is because we still want to cover the Thursday night game real quick. I'm going to give you 120 seconds, Tambo. Give me your thoughts on the Bears versus the Packers to kick off the season tomorrow night.
Yeah, two big tournaments that people are going to be focused on. FanDuel's, $1 million. DraftKings is $1 million. FanDuel's got the, first TD in the MVP spot. They're going to chop up 250K. So biggest thing is more to talk about the theory first behind it. So you're going to have to be very unique. It's $1 million to first on DraftKings, $100,000 to second. I'd suggest leaving money on the table if you're going to play that $10. The next thing is build your lineups that are correlated. So a couple things. One news we're waiting on is Trey Burton is questionable as it looks right now. There's not going to be official word until tomorrow. So Adam Shaheen is the talk a little bit in the industry, but you got to remember we sometimes live in a DFS bubble, right? It doesn't just mean he's going to be 50 or 60% the minute that Burton gets ruled out if he does. So he's $400 on DraftKings or $600 if you put him in the captain spot and you can just jam whoever you like. But I really would suggest, sort of picking a game theory, picking a game script, I should say, and then using that as game theory towards how you build your lineups. Couple quick notes. So I like Montgomery. I like Allison for Green Bay. I think a lot of people will have Devontae Adams just by fading him in your lineups, or Rodgers and using the one-off with Allison. I think you can be different. He matches up with Buster Skrine, who's got destroyed last year. Don't expect anything different. And then the last thing I'll say quickly is if you got 20 or more lineups, I'd build some onslaughts of like 5 Packers and 1 Bear, or 5 Bears and 1 Packer, and just hope the game is one-sided, or go with a bunch of kickers, a bunch of defenses, and a couple others. And don't be afraid to leave 10,000 on the table, because if you want a chance at that $1 million, you got to have a unique lineup.
No, I agree. Most of that, well said. I like Montgomery as well myself. I think Rodgers could have a big night. I really like the Packers tomorrow. And, I like MVS. I played him a couple times last year when Adams was hurt, when he was really cheap there late, and you could sneak him in. And I think he could have a pretty good year, especially with, Rodgers kind of over McCarthy and has a new coach, which everybody's kind of blow out of proportion, this whole audible thing. I think people just wanted something to talk about. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal as what people made it. So I expect him to get off to a good start. I like him as a road dog tomorrow. Rolling right into the Sunday main slate, which is why everybody's here. So these are going to be covering just teams and games, the big 12 game slate, noon and 3 o'clock games, basically Sunday. We're going to start off with our playbook section, which we go position by position. We're going to give you plays, fades, and then sleeper / values. For the quarterback and tight end, we're going to give you one of each. For the running back, wide receiver, we're going to give you two of each on the play and fade, and then a value. And then wide receiver, both of those are also, we're kind of including flex there. That's why we're doubling up. On the defense only, there's only so many. We're going to give you one play and one value. There's not really a fade the defense type deal. So Tambo, kick us off with quarterback. Give us a play, a fade, and a value at quarterback this week.
For sure. And I should note, I think we're on the same page here, Gup, just with the obvious of Saturday night with the audible and what we're going to be more in depth. The idea is to keep the pod, not fully jammed with all the extras and the tidbits and the stats, because that just makes the pod go an hour and a half. But I'll go into depth on some of them, but I just want to make sure everybody knows that these are guys that will hold ownership in my lineup. So if you only can listen to this and you don't hop on and join Gup's Corner, or you decide that's not for you, that's okay. But if you want more in-depth on all this in our articles, in the Audible on the weekend, that's when I'm going to go more in-depth. So the play first up for me says he's healthy. Love the mini stack, which I'll get into later. But Cam Newton, I think, a lot of people either paying up, which I'll get to in a second, or paying down, because there's a lot of options in that Kyler Murray, Cousins, that sort of range down there. So for me, Cam Newton's going to be my play. What I said before, everyone's paying up. There's so much value on the slate right now that so many people can just pay up and get Mahomes and Kelsey. It's very easy to do. So I will be underweight. I should note too, me, talked about at the top of the show, I'm playing 100 to 150 lineups every week. So if not more. So fades are tougher to come by for me. But when I say fade, it means underweight or severely underweight versus what the field's going to be at. For me, that's Mahomes. Because my value is on the other side of that game. I actually like Nick Foles, and he's right in between. So he's 5,300. I think some will go to Brissett, which, back to the Tony Pollard thing I mentioned earlier, it's one of those weeks where there's so much value where I just don't think you need, to go drop down to Brissett, because it's only a little bit more to get some quarterbacks in much better situations. We know Kansas City can put up points. I think their team total is like 28 or something, 27.5. And Foles coming back on the other side with Fournette. You've got Westbrook. You've got Conley in a revenge game, technically, against Kansas City. So there's a lot of guys you could pair up with them. And I really like Foles at 5,300, just below that 5,500 range that it seems everyone's gravitating towards. What about yourself, Gup?
Yeah, I had two for the play. I was interested to see if you had one, which you did was Cam. Some other guy was Baker. I do think he'll be highly probably targeted. Interested to kind of see where ownership shakes out. If Cam's way less, he would be the play for me there. But I do like Baker, and I think, there may be some thought out there that, they're overrated, or can they really do it? And maybe you can get some leverage this week. But if they go out there and win, 42-17 or something like that versus Titans, and, you may not be able to get a Baker, OBJ, Njoku type combo, or there's several combos there. Chubb, I'm big on this week. So there's some, stacks there we'll get into in a little later, but I do like Baker as a play. I fade Stafford. I think the public is just, they have the Cardinals defense as a high school defense type, which they're not very good, but there's still some good talent there. And it's still Stafford on the road. And that's my biggest deal is if this game's in Detroit, totally different deal. I think Stafford's going to be somewhat highly owned because, if I'm on the other side of the coin, it would be, they're on the road, but they're going to play a much more up-tempo team with Kyler and, new offense, new coordinator, blah, blah, blah. So Stafford's getting a lot of care, but I think they may try to run the rock, establish a run on the road. And I just think Stafford could be a good fade. I'm expecting him to be higher owned. If he's not, then maybe it changes a little bit. My value is Wentz. I think the pricing's obviously off this week a little bit. I think he's in a good matchup. One concern there is a potential blowout. And so, keep him healthy, move on. But at that price, I think I could have some shares with him. Why don't you lead off running backs? And we're going to do 2 plays, 1 fade, and 2 value.
The chalk of the week, is a topic of discussion. Dalvin Cook is obviously, what looks like mispriced. I'm sure Boone or someone will come in and jack up everything, and everyone's going to be tilting this on Sunday. But I don't know. I looked at a lot of trends and stats, and, you look at these high-owned running backs in the Millie Maker and that sort of thing. They've shown up often enough, especially these mid-priced ones. So I'm going with Cook regardless. I like him no matter what. Minnesota, I think, does fine at home, so he'll be chalk, but I like him. The other guy I like is CMC. I don't know, like you said, I don't think people are going to love to play, Barkley or Zeke just because the price is up there. But I think CMC at 8,800, if you look, it's not just that I'm game log watching. I talked about Cam already. I like them as a mini stack. It's probably one of my favorite mini stacks on the weekend. And then you can mix in the Moores, the Samuels, those sorts of guys. But CMC is just 8,800. That seems low for what he's possible and can put up. And I like them in that game. More on that later. My fade is, I talked about it on the preview pod last week, Barkley. Like I said, it might get a little better now that Zeke is in the game. It gets a little bit more competitive, let's say. But at the end of the day, what else do they have to stop? The Ingrams, the Shepherds, it's just, I don't think he's going to have as big of a game. I'd rather play CMC. I'd rather play Zeke even, and just trust that the fact they paid the man now that he's going to go out and play more snaps than they're hinting at, 20 to 25 or something. So, which I don't believe that to be true. For values, not playing many, actually. Like I even mentioned earlier, I even was so crazy enough to be off of Pollard. But one guy I do like, and you just mentioned it, Wentz is definitely looking too cheap at 5,700. But I do worry that game's a blowout. Again, more on that later. But Sanders for Philadelphia, I don't know. I heard today that they were going to trade the Chargers, tried to trade. Obviously, this got declined. Jordan Howard and a first-round pick or something or some round pick, whatever it was, for Melvin Gordon. And obviously, LA declined that. But I don't mind Sanders, and especially if they get up early, it looks like Howard's going to be the starting back. I think you could even use both those backs. I think Philly defense will get talked about this week, and I think they could pound them. And that could be a Sanders where they just bust him in, he rolls out, and all it takes is one play. He's $3,900. So really for values, he's my main one that I'll have ownership on. But I don't know. What do you got up over there?
Yeah, Chubb is my play. I love him this week. I think, any kind of game script, I think he gets his this week. I was on him big last year, had him for rookie of the year, obviously didn't win it, but I highly liked him coming out of college. I technically would say Cook, but as surprisingly, Cook was 6,000. And then, so my other play was Fournette, who's actually 6,100. I think ownership wise, Fournette's going to be the value because I think he'll be way less owned than Cook. But I like those three, however you want to mix and match it. Fournette, I think, may go under the radar this week. I do like some of the changes they made there offensively. They're at home, probably going to be a little hot, humid. I think you're going to try to establish a run and stay in that game and keep it close, keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands. So I like Fournette. My fade's kind of easy. I do like the fade of Barkley, but Damian Williams for me, I don't know how many people are going to still try to play him, with the trade for McCoy coming in. They're still thinking, well, he's still the starter. He's going to get his and his best offense, yada, yada. They're on the road, like I just said. I'm hoping he still garners ownership and it's a good fade. I also don't mind fading Barkley in the spot. And then my last value is Tevin Coleman. I don't know if I'm on an island there or not. I think they brought him there for a reason. He had him at Atlanta. I think they're going to utilize him well. I think that's going to be a fairly high-scoring game, probably a big stack game, and that's just a guy I like this year going into the year. So, definitely one of those guys can go off. Coleman's a little tricky because if it's a big stack game, I wonder if I could leverage him as a contrarian play solo and just play him and kind of avoid that game elsewhere. I'll roll right into the wide receiver, same format. And this includes all these guys could be played in a flex spot. That's why we're doubling up in this range. My play is OBJ. I like him. I know he's high on the card. Just kind of Baker's MO, knowing him and watching him for many years, with my Sooners. I just have a feeling he's going to want to get him in the game early and establish how well he is. I think it's a good matchup against the Titans. And I think Odell could have 2 touchdowns by halftime type. It would not surprise me. I know he's, most expensive on the slate, but which hopefully scares some people off. So it could be my spot to jump up and go to him. My second is T.Y. I think a lot of people are undervaluing the Colts now. It kind of swung 2 different ways in the last 7 days or 14 days since Luck retired. I think it's still a great team, and I still think they can win the division. So I'm not that far off of them, than I was. And so if people are going to jump off him, I know they're on the road this week, but I think Jacoby's if he's gonna look for any kind of security blanket, it's gonna be Ty. So if Ty's healthy and he's gonna be somewhat low owned, I'll jump on him as a play. My fade this week is like you. If I'm building a lot of lineups, I don't know if I'll fade him completely, but Mike Evans, he does rank up high, but I would much rather pivot down to Godwin at 6,200 and save the salary with potentially the same kind of upside game. I'm not as high on Evans as most people, so I think he's good, but I would rather save. And if I'm trying to get creative, if I want to stack that game and go, Winston, Godwin, and then come back with Coleman on the other side or something like that, to try to have a unique, we kind of talked about last week, how can you have a unique stack type of deal in a very highly stackable game? That's one way to do it. And so Godwin for me would be a value, but Evans is going to be my fade in that range. My two values is DJ Moore, back to Cam. I love Cam this week. And I think Moore, I'm big on Moore. Played him a ton last year, probably too much. I was too hyped up on him. Obviously, you didn't realize how bad Cam was kind of affected the last half of the year. But I think Moore is going to be a stud. I think he'll be a top 10 wide receiver by the end of the year. 5,500 is a great price for him. I will have some DJ Moore. And my last one is a super kind of value sleeper-ish. And I just think it's just kind of game script, how this thing could go. And I don't think Zeke's going to be fully functional, so maybe I have to throw a little more, is Gallup. I really like Gallup at 4,300. It could be, high upside for that price. I'm not saying go all in, but for his price, I think he could get a decent amount of points and give really good point per dollar value. So Gallup's my value. What is your play, fade, and values for the wide receivers?
Yeah, you said it with Mike Evans. He's good, but he's not God. And Godwin is by far the better play. So he's my first one. I actually think that the move is to either have both of them or probably have a little bit of Evans, because I think everyone's going to Godwin. Again, I seem like I'm pretty chalky, but it's all in the lineup construction and in mixing in the right amount of lower owned plays to get the total ownership down. But I like Godwin at 6,200. You can't beat that. He's so much cheaper than Evans. There's no reason why it won't be him. He's been featured last season, preseason, you name it. He's incredible. So I like him. My other one, I like your Moore call because I think a lot of people are on Samuel because the preseason talk and the much cheaper price, almost similar to, I think he's the exact difference from 42 to 55 as we're talking there. But I like Westbrook, actually, D.D. Westbrook, $4,800 in that game. Back to my Foles play. You talked about Fournette, who I think is a great pivot off of Cook there. I wouldn't mind stacking all three of them up and then having some Kansas City guys coming the other way. It makes it affordable enough where you still have good players that get targets, that are featured, that are possible to make things happen and fit the game script and get guys coming back like a Kelsey without Mahomes, right? You talk about how we can mix up those lineups. So Godwin and Westbrook for me. My fade, I'm not really going to have much Keenan Allen. I don't mind his price actually at 7,300, but I never really like his upside. Like I feel like he's going to get you 15 to 20, which is not bad for 7,300, but it almost reminds me of like a rich man's Jarvis Landry where, he's just getting you that consistency and that guaranteed 15. Sometimes to close out a lineup, fine, but I actually like Mike Williams over him, not to throw another play in. It's just a bonus one, but for my two values is actually going to be this. The first one's going to be Humphreys. So I hear you over there loving your boy Baker and the Cleveland stack. I don't mind that at all. Normally I'm known as a Baker hater, but it makes sense this week. Like you said, I think he's going to want to show up. I think he's going to show out on the first week by doing something with OBJ. So I could definitely see him hitting him 2 times, like you mentioned, in the game. And you mentioned first half. That'd be incredible in that stack. But you can run it back with a guy like Humphreys. He's only 4,000, gets 6-7 targets a game in Tampa Bay. Why doesn't he come here and get that same sort of thing? There's no reason why not. The game script should be set up for him. He's cheap. He gets open. He makes grabs. He was with Godwin, keeping tight with him in those games last year in Tampa Bay with Winston. So I like him at 4,000. The other guy probably way off the board, but it goes with sort of my Philly blowout situation. And it's Trey Quinn in Washington. He's like $3,400. Again, this is the guy that I'll finish my lineup with there. You're not going to get as much probably upside out of him, but if he gets you 10 to 12 points at 3,400 and the rest of your stacks went off, that's fine. There's lots of weeks where you have a guy at a tight end goes 8 points or a running back. Normally the running backs hit, but let's say a wide receiver gets 9 points. he can just be that guy for you at 3,400. It doesn't kill you, and he should be that security blanket for them on the way out and through the second half. So I really like Trey Quinn as a cheap value.
Yeah, I think that could be a solid play. Interesting to see how the quarterback plays out this week there in Washington. That kind of keeps me wanting to be off them, but just to see, do they switch it up? How quick do they pull, the starter and put Haskins in, or maybe they give him a few games. We'll see, but I think that game could run away. So that it is a worrisome game for me when it comes to DFS wise. Tight ends, we only going to go one play, one fade, one value. Kick it off for me, Tambo. Who you got there at tight end?
Yeah, it's easy to plug in Kelsey. Like I said, if you're doing that, you got to go contrarian because I think Mahomes, Kelsey, everyone can afford it. So that just gets there. You got to find a way to differentiate. But I actually like Ertz. So, big thing for him, easy to get to. He's cheap. It looks like Kittle in the San Francisco TB game, as well as Kelsey in that game are the ones that are going to get all the ownership. So when I can get the similar guy, it's like a wide receiver one for cheaper that, we know racks up points. We know the Wentz connection. You talked about his cheap price. I do worry a little bit about the blowout, like we talked about my Miles Sanders call. But what I would say, it's not to contradict. It's more that if it gets out of hand and it goes up, then you're in trouble from there, right? So it's probably because Ertz caused that blowout. So Ertz there. The fade's going to be Howard. Like I said, I like Godwin too much. I like the other guys there. I'd play Evans still with Godwin to be different that way and go off of Howard sort of in that weird price point. And then my value, Indianapolis is terrible against tight ends last year. It looks like they'll be down in this game or setting up for a back and forth. Worst case, if somehow Brissett does show up, which should feature Hunter Henry at 3,900. So Hunter Henry, 3,900 to round up my values.
Yeah, I little opposite there. And it kind of, this is why it's important, and almost every pod's going to tell you, it's so much changes from Wednesday to Saturday. As everybody saw in the fall, in the golf season, the slack is invaluable to bounce stuff off. And then the E9 was, so hot, even though it was behind the paywall. I expect the Audible to be just the same. I like Howard right now, and if I'm trying to get a stack out of the game a little outside, I'd rather go Howard if he's going to be a little under the radar. But I could see what you said. I agree with what you said as well. So that game's going to kind of be interesting to see how it plays out by the time we get to Saturday and get a little more information and deep dive. But I do like Howard as my play. My fade is Kettle. I don't, for the price, it's really just a price deal. If I'm going to pay that much for him, I'd rather just go ahead and jump all in with Kelsey, like you said, Travis Kelce, for $400 more. Yeah. I'd rather go up to him if I'm going to go ahead and take that leap. I don't know if I'm going to go that high at tight end this week. It's week one. I think you can take some chances down low, which my value, it's kind of theme of the night here, which everybody's just saying I'm being a homer probably because of Baker, but in joke you for that price, it seems like a joke to me. I may lock button him and just play him in 3,700. I'll take my chance that he gives me a 3x minimum, maybe potential 4 or 5x with a great game. But that's really cheap, and I think that may be the cheapest you see him this year as that offense gets going. Real quick, just a play and a value. What do you like on defense?
Chalky, but I like the Eagles. Talked about already. Think they hammer them. Washington has to throw at that point. Therefore, there's more opportunity. So I don't hate the chalk there, but I'll differentiate a bit. And then my value is contradictory, but it's because it won't be in the same lineups. But I like the 49ers at 2,200 only because opportunities. Winston, we know he throws the ball a ton. So in lineups where I'm not game stacking that game or going there, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the 49ers at 2,200 and leverage that on the slate because there's going to be a lot of Winston, Godwin, all those ownerships we talked about. So again, got to have a lot of lineups to run that play, but that's where I like value.
Yeah, I like the Eagles, and I don't know if you'd say them or not, but that is kind of going to be a chalk, not only a chalk play, but probably a chalk survivor pick as we get into that here in a minute. But yes. I like the Ravens, which again, I think Ravens, Eagles are going to be two of the highest survivors / defensive picked. Monitor some ownership there. They're $200 cheaper. Maybe guys come off the Ravens a little bit just because, highest price D, but I think that's a good play. My value is the Jets. I think that could be maybe a sneaky kind of play. They're not too cheap, but the whole range isn't that big of a spread this week. So right. I like them. I like home defenses normally and guys that maybe could go under the radar that, I think they could attack the quarterback, get some pressure. potential turnovers, home field, like I said. So I like the Jets, kind of an out of the box type of play there. So that's the playbook. Our next section is stack attack. We're going to go through our two favorite stack combination-ish, one side of the game, whatever it may look at. Can be different combinations, and maybe not a complete stack, but maybe say 4 or 5 guys. I may stack 2 or 3 of these, or make game stack. We have an in-depth article where we go into this a little more. That'll come out this week. But give me 2 quick stacks that you like on the stack attack.
Yeah, I'll be quick because I hit on them. So I told you I like the Cam CMC. If you want to extend it, as you mentioned, Gup, with more, that'd be fine. Samuel, get crazy with all 4 of them if you want. It's up to you. The other one I talked in depth about, just to add some names to it, though. So Foles, Westbrook, Fournette can all go together. And then Chris Conley in the revenge spot against the Chiefs, cheap as can be. It's crazy. It's a little bit off the board, but again, that's how you're going to win something with a big field, large field GPP, MMEing it. You're going to have the combos of all of them. So I really like those 2 stacks as of right now. Going more in depth in my stack attack article, and we're going to put out there, and then we'll talk about the Audible as well. Maybe add another one to that.
Yeah, I like, obviously, at this point, you can take Cleveland and stack anyway. You got Baker, Chubb, Njoku, OBJ. You can even go, one of the number 2 or 3. If you want to get creative, cheap value down there. If you think, picking the right one that's going to go off outside of OBJ is a little tricky, but I think you can do it. Definitely some options there. Higgins is a good one. There's some options there if you want to get creative, if you think that's going to be a chalky stack. And then the other one, I kind of agree with you. I like Cam, CMC, Moore, Samuels. I even put in there. I did lean more, but because I do think I agree with you 100%. I think Samuels, being the price difference and kind of the hype, should be higher owned. And so I think the more pivot there could give you, it's not as much salary relief, but could give you some leverage on a game stack. I don't potentially see Carolina being that big of a game stack. Rams are still looked at as a pretty good D, but we'll get to in a little bit, in just a few minutes. I like the Panthers to win that game outright at home. Obviously, well invested in Cam this year preseason, and the Panthers picked him to win got him to win the Super Bowl at a ticket, 50-1, and Cam to win MVP. That is a longer shot than some of the favorites. So I'm all in on the Panthers this year, and I like to see them do well. Next, we're going to go into kind of the betting contest wrap up. These are going to be based on the Super Contest / Super7 lines. So the Super Contest in Vegas releases their lines at today was like 5:00 their time. Those are the lines we use in the Super7, so they're locked. So if you're not familiar with either one of those, the Super Contest and the Super7 of ours, the lines get set Wednesday afternoon, and they don't change. So there's potential value there by the time you got to put your picks in. Obviously, there is there's a deadline to get them in, so you can't take full advantage. Normally Saturday, whatever. For a Super Contest in Vegas, we have to get them to our proxy by Friday night, so it's not a huge advantage. But Super7, I think you have all the way up until Sunday morning. Jibby can correct me in my ear if I'm wrong. But so we're going to pick our 2 favorite plays as of Wednesday night. Doesn't mean they're going to be on them or bets or anything like that, but it's just right now. Typically, when we go on this pod, these lines are going to be hot off the press. So, Tambo, give me your 2 plays that catch your eyes as the lines come out that are locked in for these contests.
Yeah, our stacks line up with it. But we both like Cam. The Carolina Panthers at +2.5. I think they win the game. They're not my favorite dog. We'll get into that. But my other team that I do like is the Cardinals. Kyler Murray. I just think he's special. I think something happens. He's special. Obviously, your bank account knows he's special. So, at the end of the day, I don't think he's great for DFS this week. We didn't talk enough about it earlier. I'm not too – if he goes off, good for him. And if I miss that boat, then fine. But because there's so many dudes that you have to figure out with his side, David Johnson, Isabella, Kirk, all these guys. But I do like them +3. So I'll take 2 dogs to start it off.
Yeah, see, I would take Kyler as a contrarian, just come back quarterback after I've got my stacks elsewhere. So if I got everything filled out and it's like a running back, wide receiver tight end or something, and I just want that cheap, high upside, good running potential for him. The man's pretty focused at times. We saw that last year. I think he comes out and he balls out. They are a dog I like. Not on my list here, but they're definitely. I did like to see them at a +3 on that locked in line. That makes me like them even more. So I'll move them up in the rankings a little bit. Our first one's the Colts +6.5. That line moved from 6 to 6.5 pretty quick this week. I would love to see it get to 7, but it's locked in at 6.5 for the contest wise. But I love them. I kind of said earlier, I think they're undervalued in the market right now. I know it's a tall task for them this week, but 6.5 is a lot in the NFL. And I think that team, a team that was predicted to win double-digit wins, 14 days ago. I know they lost Luck, and I like Luck. He was a keeper in one of my leagues at one point. So I have no issues. I understand what they lost, but they built a pretty good team. And I think Jacoby's comes from New England, has that kind of pedigree, and I think he's going to do all right. I wouldn't be surprised to see him win that game in a little bit of an upset. My second one is the Vikings -4. I talked about it last week a little bit. I love them as a home team. I love Zimmerman at home covering against the spread. He's one of the best in the league. Viking. I'm way farther down on the Falcons than the average guy out there, or kind of whoever's talking about them. I'm not saying they're terrible, but I'm definitely in the downside on the Falcons. I got them in my power rankings this week, down on the list compared to where most people do. So I like the Vikings there -4. I think they're going to have a good year. I think they're going to run the ball well with Cook. And obviously the targets are there, and they have a good defense. So anytime you can do that and you're at home, I like that spread. You kind of mentioned earlier, I think you just said it, is that the Cards is your dog of the week as the outright?
Yeah, that's my favorite one to win the game straight up. Kyler wins in his first NFL game, and boom, the horns go off.
Yeah, and it's funny because I said Panthers or Cardinals. So we're kind of – and if y'all don't know this, we talk absolutely zero before the pod. I send the outline out, and then we don't talk until we go on. So Panthers and Cardinals are the two that I had mentioned. So I'll go Panthers, outright winner at home. Move to 2.5. I don't know if we'll get a 3 on that number as far as by Sunday, but I do like that with the Rams traveling and kind of the unknowns there. Although I think Gurley could be under the radar. I know he's kind of expensive type play DFS wise, just because so many of the unknowns and I got burned by him as much as anybody last year. Rode him to the Super Bowl in a couple leagues and lost the Super Bowl because I didn't have him at all in my season long stuff. But at 7,900, he could go under the radar, and I wouldn't mind going back to him. If he's going to be healthy or at his, I'd say, quote unquote best, he can't be more healthier than what he'll be going in this game. So if you believe that was a short-term deal, then it may be a week to play him. Before we wrap it up, Survivor picks. So if you're not familiar with the Survivor, everybody has Survivor pools. Obviously, we do our own. Both of them filled. I think they had 500 entries each, so 1,000 people. You pick one team. When they lose or tie, you're done, and it's you outlast the pool. However, everybody's got their own fun family ones as well. Some people are 30, 40 in them, and it's good fun because there's not a lot of thought into it. You just pick one each week, so you have to just study. If you're, my wife likes doing it. Every year, so she's in it again this year. Who is? We won't hold you to these. This won't be like the one and done because a lot can change between now and Sunday. But right now, who's your Survivor pick?
I'm just going home week 1 with the Eagles, man. Like, I'm sure there'll be the chalk, like you said, and I'm certain something will go wrong and Washington will show up somehow. But I got to go with it. No rebuys this year, right? That was a big deal for strategy, right? Where you could go in and take some shots early on, which is all good. I love this. Like you said, it's the easiest contest. Pick a winner. Yeah. That's all you got to do. So I'm rolling with the Eagles. I got to be safe on week 1 so I can at least get to week 2. That's how I try and focus it and then sort of plan it out from there as the year goes on. But looks like a great spot.
Yeah, no rebuys and no multi-entry in each pool. So we did separate pools, but a single bullet for everybody. We want everybody to have the same leverage. We didn't want people. Survivor pools are supposed to be that way. You're not supposed to get 3 picks and you get the balance and it's one entry. You either make it or you don't. So and so far,
single entry. Yeah, just like exactly. I love a single entry. We talked about it all show. That's perfect.
Yeah, I think it's down to the Ravens or Eagles for me. I'm leaning the Eagles as well. I just don't. If the Eagles lose to the Redskins, there's some massive problems going on. But
I don't want to drag it on, but I'll say the Ravens because I'm a homer. You know this. That really scares me. Because going to Miami, it's different than if they were at home. I think they'll be popular still. You talked about with the defense earlier, the same reason I'd rather pay the chalk Eagles defense. I don't know. Something worries me about that game, so I'm just gonna stay away from them on that. And if I use Lamar a little bit, it might be as like a naked spot in a lineup that, like you said, it's already filled out like a Kyler. Get me one of these running backs, running quarterbacks that I can use. But I wouldn't use them. Survivor, that looks like a death penalty week 1. I'm scared of it.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to try to default on home teams the best I can, which is why I give Eagles a little bit of an advantage there. I agree with you, right? If I can take a home team in the Survivor, that's what I'm going to do most times, just based off the numbers. Tambo, any final thoughts? Like we said, action packed, quick. We're going to give you guys this similar format. Obviously, there's so much information that's been out there. We're not going to go deep this week. Next week, we'll have time to review and then have some real live numbers to look at. So before I kind of wrap it up, talk about our tools and everything, anything you got to wrap it up, Tambo?
No, I know you'll talk about Audible, so that's good. Just mainly what I'm doing, so people know. Like, I'll be in on the Stack Attack article, which you'll find on the site. I'll be in on, if we do sort of like a panel picks, almost like what we have for golf. I'll be in on that as far as DFS goes, and then I'll have my own article, Tambo's Targets. I'm just going to do basically a GPP pivot article. As always, like with golf, I like to bring it out at the last minute, so it'll come out by Saturday morning. You'll still have plenty of time with it all day Saturday evening. But so many articles are out already, like Gup said, TMI. There's so much to read. I want the latest, greatest, what I read. It'll be who I'm pivoting off of, who I'm going to instead, with a blurb on why and how much and ownership and sort of reasoning. So that's what I got this year coming out. Long-winded on this one to tell you, but other than that, I got nothing. Follow me on Twitter at ToeTag and Tambo. If you want to hit me up, DM me. Any questions, if you're in Gup's Corner Slack, hit me up there. Find me on #food.
Yeah, as always, join us Sunday night, 9:00 Eastern. That time isn't going to be as locked as what E9 is, just because Saturday nights are a little bit different with family and everything. Our goal and intent is to keep it at 9:00 every Saturday for the Audible. It's our live member-only chat. It's held on YouTube behind our paywall. It's a open book to us. So, me, Tambo, will have guests on there at times. You can ask us anything and everything. We'll go, probably no longer than an hour, but at least 30, 45 minutes. They're always well attended, and that's our time to give you the last information we have. If you can't catch it live, these are stay behind the paywall all the time. But you'll be able to get up Sunday morning and say you were out with your family or watching college football or something. You can jump in Sunday and rewatch it, on your own if you would like. That's always available. Biggest news is, join Gup's Corner now. It's the best time to join. Use the code NFL to get 25% off any monthly or annual package. It's good through this Sunday at midnight. Can be used towards our standard content package, which is all sports. It includes all sports included. We're currently offering college football, NFL, PGA, NASCAR, horse racing, and we're doing some test trials with NBA and MLB. We'll make the decision on those here in the next couple of weeks. I don't know if we're going to introduce those products, but for sure, for always, we'll have the college football, NFL, PGA, NASCAR, horse racing, among other stuff, in one-off stuff that we do throughout the year. Now we have our brand new college football NFL premium tools. They've been a massive hit in the Slack. We had a free preview last week. They are live behind the paywall now. You can use a 25% off on those as well. We'll have the PGA premium tools will be a free preview for the fall swing for the Sanderson Farm and the Safeway Open. All members will get to free preview those. So another reason to join now, you can free preview those here in a couple of weeks. The packages will start for the premium golf tools on October 7th. The NFL has been great, and the college football, I think we're one of the best in the industry as far as the knowledge we'll bring to it. Bobby's great. Check out their podcast, Power 5 Pod. We're not doing a college football because we're kind of pushing everybody to them. Great information there. Bobby writes terrific articles. He's very active in the Slack. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tools up right now. We do have college football tools. We obviously have NFL tools. We have weekly projections, stat engines, matchup advantages, trenches advantages. Take a look at O-line, D-line. We have the scouting report for the NFL and the scouting report for the college football. Both of those contain per play on offense, time of possession, yards per play, all the injuries, passing attempts, rushing shares, receiving. NFL will have receiving targets. We're working on college. You can go back to the 2018 season. You can go to any conference in college football. You can go to any NFL team. Rick Gaiman's partnered up with us to help me build them. They've turned out tremendous, and we're improving them by the hour. We get feedback, we adjust, we're making them better. The foundation is there. It's only going to get better. We have a unique red zone advantage report that will be great for the NFL as the season goes along. And then we also have your season-long stuff, cheat sheets. Obviously, those are wrapping up tonight, but we'll have those live for next year. All of our annual packages are 365 days. So if you buy a football one now, you get it through September 4th next year. So if we wind up doing some spring coverage, NFL draft, best ball, all that, you'll have all that as well. It's very low price. And our content packages, you get all the content. So that's everything that me, Tambo, OG, everybody, Scott for NASCAR, anything we produce that's content written by us, articles, opinions, that's included in the content. Tools are all custom tools you can use yourself that you can go on the site and use. That's the difference in them. So if you're a member now, you've been a member, you want a member, you still get all that you've had. These tools are just an add-on if you choose to. Nothing we've done in the past has gone away or will go away. You'll always have access to them. All the content, the lineup builder I put out this week, that's part of the content package, always will be. It's not behind the tools. Ownership projections, if I golf, when I do them, they will be in the content package, not behind the tools. If we do NFL, same thing. So looking forward to it. It's been great. Contests are closing in 1 minute. It is now 9:00. I believe we hit under an hour, which is our goal. Good luck to everybody in your contest this year. JB will be sending out stuff in the next 24 hours on getting everything up on the site. So look forward to those emails, or check Twitter if you're looking for any information. Everybody will. Thanks for reminding me. Before I sign off, I do have this. I know we got over 100 retweets for sure. And then I picked this. I have it 1 second. So we are going to give away a free entry to the Super7, which is worth $100. Man, we got blown up, JB. I'm going to give away 2, JB. He may get mad at me, but man, we had a ton of these. So I'm going to use our Twitter handle here and reach out to JB or myself, and you will get you free entry $100 into the Super7. The first one is Steve Morin at Steve Mo 36513. And then the second one is at Lukey G4, LUKEYG4. You are the 2 winners of Super7 contest. Entries $100. Reach out to us and we will get those entries set up for you, JB or myself. For JB, producer, you guys all know him, the man behind the scenes, The Rock, and Tambo. This is Gup. We will see you Saturday night live at the Audible.